I recently came across this large U-shaped measuring tool with a German dial indicator on one end and a spring-loaded reset lever on top. It has a long metal frame, a plunger that comes down from the gauge, and another contact point on the opposite arm, and the whole thing is about 14 inches long. Does anyone know what this device is for? What you have found is a precision thickness caliper with a table rest, designed to quickly check the thickness of flat materials during production. The frame sits on the bench, the workpiece is slid under the anvil at the far end, and the lever lifts the feeler so you can position it. When you release the lever, the probe drops onto the material and the dial indicator shows its thickness to 1/10 of a millimeter. Tools like this are widely used in factories that handle sheet metal, plastics, paper, and similar products. My brother-in-law found this heavy green machine labeled Hans Schilling Maschinenfabrik Osterode Hards, with a large horizontal handle on top and a flat table marked with a grid underneath the cutting area. Does anyone know what this machine is used for? What your brother-in-law has found is a hand-operated fly press made by Hans Schilling Maschinenfabrik in Osterode in the Harz region of Germany. The big horizontal bar with the two balls works as a weighted handle that spins the screw, so the upper platen comes down with steady pressure. Judging by the ruled table and side guide, this example was set up as a bookbinder's or printer's press for pressing or trimming stacks of paper, book blocks, and covers, especially in small shops in the 1960s. I was walking along the beach near a lighthouse in Asturias in northern Spain when I noticed this huge concrete structure with a vertical row of metal horns mounted along one side. Does anyone know what this structure is? What you have seen is an old foghorn installation, a loud signaling device that once worked together with the lighthouse to warn ships when visibility was poor. A foghorn like this produced powerful low-frequency blasts that carried a long distance across the water and told captains they were approaching land or dangerous rocks. Depending on the design, the sound could be a steady tone or repeated burst that followed a fixed rhythm, or even a simple Morse code pattern. I picked up this heavy metal container at an auction and I cannot figure out what it does. It is a blue steel drum about 11 inches across with two handles, a split metal lid, and a fitting on the side that looks like it could be for water. Inside, the bottom and lower walls are lined with ceramic beads and plates, and there is a shaft in the center as if some part used to bolt onto it. What you have picked up is the tank from an attrider mill, which is a type of stirred ball mill used for grinding and mixing materials into a very fine slurry. The ceramic beads lining the bottom and lower walls act as the grinding media, and a vertical shaft with arms once came down through the slot in the split lid to stir them. As the beads moved, they crushed and mixed whatever material was inside, while the water jacket around the tank helped carry away heat during long runs. This kind of mill was developed in 1945 by chemist Andrew Sigvary, who went on to found Union Process in Akron, Ohio in 1946 to produce attrider mills for industry. Starting in the late 1940s, they were used in factories that made paints and inks, in ceramics plants, and in the production of metal powders and magnetic ferrets wherever precise fine grinding was needed. I found this small metal ball in a closet at my office. It sits in an IBM-branded box, has raised letters and symbols all over its surface, and the plastic top is marked Prestige Elite 72. The underside is hollow with a fitting that looks like it clips onto a machine of some kind. I am guessing it might be part of an old office device. What you have found is a type ball from an IBM Selectric 2 typewriter, specifically the Courier 10 font element. Earlier mechanical typewriters used a forest of levers, with each key driving its own type bar to strike the ribbon. On the Selectric, all the characters sit on this single rotating and tilting sphere. When a key is pressed, the mechanism instantly twists and tips the ball so the chosen character moves into position, then snaps it against an inked ribbon to print the mark on the paper. The original IBM Selectric appeared in 1961 and quickly became standard equipment in offices, government agencies, and newspaper newsrooms across the United States and Western Europe. Secretaries, legal typists, journalists, and technical writers relied on Selectrics for everyday correspondence, contracts, and reports, and some models were even hooked up to early computers as terminals. I have a friend who has kept this mysterious metal device on his desk for years and we still have no idea what it does. When I turn the crank, it raises the shallow pan about half an inch, then lets it drop again, and the crank only turns in one direction, so that seems to be its entire function. What you found is a Casa Grande cup, a classic device from geotechnical engineering used to measure the liquid limit of soil. A small sample of clay or silt is placed in the metal cup and a narrow groove is cut through the center. When the crank is turned, the mechanism lifts the cup and lets it drop again and again onto a hard rubber base. With each drop, the groove in the soil closes a little more. The liquid limit is the moisture content at which the groove closes after a standard number of blows. The method was developed in the early 20th century by Austrian-American engineer Arthur Casagrande, who refined the earlier consistency limits introduced by Swedish scientist Albert Atterberg. This simple-looking device helps engineers decide whether a soil is safe for building and how it will behave when it becomes wet. I found this heavy suitcase-style cabinet filled with old electrical controls inside a black case, with coils, switches, and a milliamp gauge on the front panel. Does anyone know what this machine was originally used for? What you have found is an early diathermy therapy machine, a portable electrotherapy unit designed to heat tissue deep beneath the skin. Inside this suitcase cabinet are high-frequency coils, tuning controls, and a milliamp meter that let the operator adjust the strength of the current. In the first half of the 20th century, devices like this were used in doctors' offices and physiotherapy clinics to relax muscles and joints, reduce swelling, and improve circulation. Diathermy became a popular modern treatment before antibiotics, and more advanced medical imaging changed the way many of these conditions were managed. I found this clear glass object while cleaning out my grandmother's things, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. It is shaped like a large teardrop, partly filled with cloudy liquid. It weighs around 3 pounds or a little less. Does anyone know what this is used for? What you have found is a glass grenade-style fire extinguisher, sometimes called a firebomb. These were made in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, roughly from the 1870s through about 1910. The pear-shaped glass bulb was filled with a fire-suppressing liquid and kept in a simple wire or metal bracket on the wall. In case of a fire, anyone in the house could grab it and throw it into the flames. The breaking glass spread the liquid over the burning area to knock the fire down long enough for people to escape or put it out. I found this large metal triangle hanging on the wall in a house in Pennsylvania. It is about 3 feet long and made from round metal tubing, welded into a triangular shape with a short brace on one side. And I am trying to figure out what kind of old tool or implement it is. What you have found is an old Dutch window sprayer called a raamspuit, used for washing high windows. The long tube was lowered into a bucket of water, and the person on the ground worked the wooden handle as a pump. Each stroke forced a jet of water out of the perforated end, spraying it up onto the glass. Before pressure washers and long hose nozzles, tools like this were a practical way for homeowners and caretakers to clean upper-story windows on narrow European streets. I found this large stationary hand tool that is about 18 to 20 inches long, with a wooden handle and an adjustable metal head. Does anyone know what this tool was used for? What you have found is a bench-mounted metal bender used for forming small bars or rods into precise angles. The body would be bolted to a workbench, and the metal piece placed between the round jaws at the top. When you swing the wooden handle, the jaws open and then close to pull the metal around a fixed point, while the center bolt sets the final depth of the bend. Tools like this were common in small workshops, garages, and farm sheds through the first half of the 20th century. I found this unusual wooden object on the side of the road, and I am trying to figure out what it is. It has a long handle with a lightweight spiked ball at the end. The whole thing is about 15 inches long, and the ball is around 6 inches across. Does anyone know what this object is used for? What you have found is a ceremonial mace modeled on the traditional bulava used by Ukrainian Cossacks. The bulava first appeared as a weapon in the 13th century, and by the 16th to 18th centuries it had evolved into a symbol of authority. Cossack officers would present the bulava to the elected hetman, who served as both the military commander and the head of the Cossack state. In modern Ukraine, the bulava still represents state power. and serves as the ceremonial mace of the president, made of gilded silver and set with 64 emeralds and garnets. I came across these wooden cabinets that look like something from a museum or archive. They are arranged in the long rows. Each door has a brass handle and a label. What you have seen is a set of apothecary cabinets that were traditionally used in pharmacies to store and organize medicinal ingredients. Each small compartment held a specific component so that pharmacists could measure precise amounts as they prepared medicines by hand, long before pre-packaged drugs became common. These cabinets kept a busy pharmacy tidy and made the right ingredient easy to find. The cabinets in the photo belong to the History of Pharmacy Museum at the University of Arizona College of Pharmacy. The museum displays artifacts from the 1800s through the 1950s, and cabinets like these are now prized antiques. I found this metal hand tool in a skip, and at first glance it looks like a screwdriver. The round head has a small centerpiece that slides up and down on a spring, and there are pawl-like parts on the sides, yet nothing on it actually turns. I am starting to think it might be part of a larger broken tool. Does anyone know what this tool was made for? What you have found is a tension spring pump, a specialized tool electricians use to push a pulling spring through electrical conduit. The round head contains a mechanism that grips the spring, and each squeeze of the handle drives it farther into the pipe with more force than you could apply by hand. In electrical installations, the conduit is installed first, and the wires are pulled in afterward with a steel tension spring. Using a tension spring pump reduces that friction problem and makes pulling the wires through ribbed or flexible conduit much easier. I found this metal tapered tool with a wooden cross handle among some old family tools. The metal is stamped James Swan Company Extra USA. My family comes from a town known for being one of the first places to strike crude oil, and many relatives worked on oil derricks and pumps, so I am wondering if it might be related to that kind of work. What you have found is a bung auger, a specialized tool used to bore holes in wooden barrels so a bung can be driven in. The mark James Swan Company Extra USA points to the James Swan Company, an American toolmaker founded in 1877. Its founder, James Swan, emigrated from Scotland to the United States in 1854 and later built a reputation in Seymour, Connecticut for high-quality edge tools, including augers, chisels, and gouges. In the cooperage trade, a bung auger like this was used to make a clean, tapered opening so the bung would seal barrels of oil, wine, or whiskey without leaking. I have a small antique tool that has been passed down in my family for years, and I cannot figure out what it was used for. The base has holes that look like it was meant to be screwed down to a surface, so it seems like it was fixed in one place while someone worked with it. Does anyone know what this tool was used for? What you have in your family is a hand crank bench grinder, a small sharpening tool that was bolted to the edge of a workbench. Turning the wooden handle drives the gears on the back and spins the grinding wheel at a higher speed. A worker would hold the edge of a knife, chisel, or garden tool against the stone to bring back a sharp cutting edge. Tools like this were common in home workshops and barns before compact electric grinders became widespread. I recently came across this heavy stainless steel container that weighs around 30 pounds and has a sealing lid with large black knobs on top. There is a short pipe connection on the side with a clamp fitting. Does anyone know what this item is used for? What you have found is a stainless steel mixing vessel from an industrial high-shear granulator mixer. In the complete machine, this bowl locks into a larger housing. The lid is sealed, and an internal impeller and chopper drive powders and liquids at very high speed. The process breaks up lumps and turns the damp mass into uniform granules that can then be dried and pressed into tablets or capsules. Equipment of this type has been used in pharmaceutical, chemical, and food production since the late 20th century. I bought this carved wooden statue at an antique store, and they told me it is more than 100 years old, but they could not give me any details about it. Does anyone know what this statue is? What you have bought is a carved figure of Shouxing, the old man of the South Pole, the Taoist star of longevity. In Chinese tradition, he is the deified form of the star Canopus, and a powerful symbol of long life and happiness. He is shown as an elderly man with a high forehead, Longbeard, Staff, and Peaches, the fruit of immortality surrounded by children. Statues like this were displayed in homes to invite health, blessings, and long lives. I have had this thing for years and never thrown it away because I always wanted to know what it was for, and I finally decided to ask, does anyone know what this is used for? What you have is a needle threader, a small tool that helps guide thread through the tiny eye of a sewing needle. The thin wire loop is pushed through the needle eye, then you pass the thread through the loop and pull the handle back, which draws the thread neatly into place. Simple metal threaders like this, with a small decorative head stamped into the handle, have been tucked into home sewing kits for generations. In the last video, I asked you to identify this glass vessel with a very peculiar shape. It's a toy or a simple demonstration piece showing how a liquid with a very low boiling point behaves. I really appreciate everyone who shared their guesses in the comments. It helps the video reach more people and allows the channel to grow. Now I want to invite you to identify another unusual object. What do you think this small metal hammer is used for? Leave your guesses in the comments and I'll reveal the answer in the next video. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope you found it interesting. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and lets more people discover the channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.